So this week we have the planet of communications, Mercury, going backwards. Should you run for cover? I'm going to explain everything that I can to tell you about why no, you should not be running for cover. Rather, you should be embracing Mercury retrograde. Welcome to the Mainly Moonology podcast. I'm your host, Yasmin Boland, an award-winning astrologer and the Sunday Times best-selling author of books including Moonology and creator of the Moonology Oracle cards. My intention for this podcast is to help you understand how you can create your dream life using Mainly Moonology, the moon, as your guide. So welcome back to the Mainly Moonology podcast. That's very Mercury retrograde. I forget the name. I'm about to say the Mercury retrograde podcast. Welcome back to the Mainly Moonology podcast. This week we have Mercury, the planet of communications, going backwards in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, for one thing, if you're Sagittarius, yes, it's kind of a bigger deal for you than for other people. Or if you have planets in Sagittarius, which you may or may not know about. If you don't know where your planets are, I have a free chart service. I can just quickly tell you the URL if you want to pause this and go and get your chart. That's that is moonmessages.com/free chart. One word, moonmessages.com/free chart. But even if you're not Sagittarius, guess what? We all have Sagittarius in our chart somewhere. So say, for example, if you happen to be Gemini rising, then Sagittarius rules your love zone. Or if you happen to be Scorpio rising, then Sagittarius rules your second house of cash. If you're Sagittarius rising, it rules your first house of image and the way you come across in the world. And again, if you don't know where in your chart Sagittarius is, go to moonmessages.com/free chart, moonmessages.com/free chart, and you can find out which part of your chart is ruled by Sagittarius. But even if you don't know, I still have a lot of information for you to understand. The first thing I want to talk about is why Mercury retrograde is not necessarily a bad thing. So people tend to get rather freaked out about Mercury retrograde. I had a girlfriend of mine yesterday, we were talking about astrology, and she was saying, oh, you want to do such and such before the retrogrades. And I'm like, yeah, well, sometimes the retrogrades can be really positive. They seem to have got this sort of bad reputation out there in the world. I'm not really sure why. But they've got this reputation for being kind of bad luck or just difficult or problematic. And the truth is that they are not necessarily all that. They can be annoying. Okay, I will say that they can be annoying. They can bring up glitches. They can bring up old dramas. They can cause confusion, especially Mercury retrograde can definitely cause confusion. But they also are a chance to have a second chance, to have a redo, to rethink. If you're in negotiations with someone right now and you're not happy with the way things are going, it's a really good time to renegotiate, to go back and look at, this is what I think, this is what you think, let's talk about this. Rethink, revise, revamp, revisit, re-edit. Very good time for editing if you're writing a book or anything like that. I'm going to be doing some editing actually during the retrograde as well. So that's the first thing to say. The next thing to say is, the retrograde in each sign has a slightly different flavor. So this one is in Sagittarius, that's different to if it was Mercury retrograde in Cancer or Mercury retrograde in Gemini or Mercury retrograde in Scorpio or whatever. They all have a different flavor. So you may or may not know that quite a few years ago now, I wrote this book with, co-wrote it with Kim Farnell, the Mercury retrograde book. And it's really partly about how to find the good in each retrograde. So there's a section here, the upside of Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. So here we go. I'm going to read you a bit. Here is your chance to look at the big picture of your life again. If your plans have come unstuck recently, perhaps you've been focusing too much on the details. Upsets now can also simply be due to the fact that your timing was off. Whatever is going on in your life, use Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, which we're about to have, to realize there is a larger plan for you and to create a better upgraded future. Now, let me just start off by saying why we said that. So basically, Sagittarius is the sign that on the natural chart rules the 9th house. And it's very much about, the 9th house is very much about the broad vision of your life philosophies, and seeing the bigger picture. So Mercury going backwards in the house that's to do with the bigger picture is really a chance to sort of step back and have another look at the bigger picture. So, if you feel like your life has gone off course, it can be a good time to get some perspective again and sort of rethink where you are going in your life. Oh, well, there we go. I basically just quoted myself. It's also the ideal time to discipline yourself, to step back and see how far you've come. Take another moment to recount your blessings. So again, just to drill down on those two a little bit, it's not exactly what I said. It's step back and see how far you've come. So if you're feeling a bit like, oh, it's nearly the end of the year, I didn't achieve all the things I wanted to achieve, then it's very much a chance to step back and go, you know what? Actually, I may not have completely ticked off my to-do list that I had for 2024, but guess what? I can look at January and I can look at now in November and I can see how far I've come. So give that a go. Take another moment to recount your blessings. Now, again, the reason why Kim and I wrote this in the book is because the 9th house is the house that gives us perspective. And one of the things that I strongly believe about the 9th house, which is Sagittarius house, Mercury's retrograde in Sagittarius, is that when you step back and if you need perspective, one of the best ways to get perspective is to actually think about what's good in your life. So count your blessings. So very much a time to, instead of thinking, oh, I haven't got this, or this is happening, or I'm sad about that, or this didn't work out the way I wanted it to, think about what is working out for you. I know I see a lot of things on social media, all saying things like, don't worry, everything is happening for a reason, or, one day you'll be able to understand why you went through what you went through, or, everything that's happening to you now is leading you to a better place and all that. And they're all great, those memes. They sort of keep you uplifted, don't they? And they are sort of, a bit along the lines of what we're talking about today. They're kind of giving you hope that everything's going to work itself out eventually. But, at the end of the day, it's a bit like the promise of what can work out, the promise of what will eventually work out. Whereas what Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is kind of asking us to do is to think about what has already worked out. What is already going your way? Very much a case of that, all right? So count your blessings, very much a time to be counting your blessings. If you're lucky, and Sagittarius is a lucky sign, then you could find yourself retracing the fun of an old or previous adventure. So I'm actually thinking about heading off back to the lake for a week. I don't know if maybe by the time you listen to this, I'll be at the lake. I don't know. I have some friends who are staying in my house who can look after Jonty. Hello, darling. And I might do that, or I might not, but that would be perfect. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. If you're traveling abroad, it could be that you go back somewhere you visited before and hopefully have even more fun. So 5 things to do when Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius. So we've said one of them. Look back and see how far you've come. It's a really important one because, it is easy sometimes to feel a bit like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. I'm really trying hard, but I'm not getting there. But if you can see that you've made some progress, especially if you can say, look at this time 12 months ago, or even just to January, 11 months ago, if you can see that you're making progress, maybe that's a little indicator that you are actually on the right track, even if it doesn't feel like it. So just say you started a business and, you've been working on it all year and you're only making whatever, $100 a month from it, and it's still not where you want it to be. Okay, but guess what? You're making $100 a month, so it must be going somewhere. And life really does seem to go in incremental steps. We all want things to happen overnight, but they don't necessarily always happen overnight. So, okay, so that's one thing. Okay, here's another one. Brush up on or start learning a foreign language, because Sagittarius is the sign that loves to travel. It's the sign of internationality. So yeah, so if you've been thinking, I want to learn, French in 2025 or Spanish or whatever, don't wait for next year. Start it now. There's plenty of apps for that as well. Investigate courses of study, but don't necessarily enroll until after the retrograde. So if you're thinking about doing study, because again, Sagittarius is very much the planet of higher learning, the sign of higher learning, sorry. So if you're thinking about, next year you want to do some study, perfect time to be really investigating what it is you want to study, what qualifications do you need, what paperwork do you need, do you need to write some essays for your submission or whatever. Very good time to be doing all that. And then ideally wait until after Mercury retrograde's over to sign up. Although, it may work that for you to do it while Mercury's retrograde, maybe you signed up last time when Mercury was retrograde. These things do go in circles. Another one. Commit to a more optimistic outlook. Now, I love this one because the thing is that Sagittarius is the sign that's ruled by the optimistic planet Jupiter. And it's very much a case of if you can be more optimistic in your view, then you are likely to attract better times. That's just the law of attraction, okay? So again, it's like, people think, oh, Mercury retrograde, trouble and strife, but it's not. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, for example, it's a chance to get back into expecting good things, okay? So I recently had a period where I felt that I had somehow gone out of alignment. It was like things just weren't going my way. And, I always struggle to remember the examples I had when I realized, no, I'm back in alignment. But it was things like, I can't even remember, but it was things just started to work out again. They just started to go my way again. The example I always think of is, if you ever played tennis in your life, in Australia, we all seem to play tennis as children. But, if you hit the ball and it hits the net, does it fall back on your side, which means the ball is out, or does it sort of have a little spin on it and it goes over the net and you get it into where it needs to be? To me, that's one of the best examples of Jupiter, which is the lucky planet, having the luck of Jupiter beneath your wings, but also being in alignment. And one of the things about being in alignment, which makes you a much, much, much more powerful manifester, because it kind of feeds on itself, because you start to see things are going my way again, I'm back in alignment, and that sort of, it's like success breeds more success. One of the good things about Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is it's a chance to recommit to having a positive outlook. And that's what, like I said, see what you did at the start of the year, and can you see how far you've come, even if it's only a little way? Can you see you're going in the right direction? Because if you can get yourself into that more positive mindset, you're actually going to attract more good things to yourself. All right. And another one, the last one, focus on the journey rather than the destination. So that's another great one because, Sagittarius is the sign that loves to travel. And, but sometimes it can be that we focus on the destination, and it can be about the journey. So think about where you are. I was reminded yesterday by a friend who reminded me of that expression, which you may or may not have heard of, but life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And sometimes that's really, really hard to understand. You might think, well, I don't know why this has happened to me. I'm not happy about this. How can this possibly be for me? Well, that means you're probably still on the journey. Gets back to those memes that I was talking about, which say, in the end, you will see why everything worked out the way it did, or everything will be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, then it's not the end, and all that. And I know that gets us back into the kind of hoping and waiting for things to work out. But then that's why if you then get present and you have the more optimistic mindset and you think, no, I'm this is happening for me, not to me. And you can start to really change your perspective, which is a very Sagittarius thing. And then you can start to really focus on the journey, not the destination. And I'm just going to say something else, which is almost the opposite of everything I've just said, but it still applies somehow. If you can accept there are always going to be challenges, nearly always, every now and then you'll go through a patch where it's like, oh, everything's so sweet, everything's really working out for me. That does happen, but I believe we are here on Earth to evolve, and sometimes it takes issues coming up for us to make us evolve. If everything's sweet and lovely, are we going to evolve? Maybe, but maybe if we get too complacent, we just need a little something to, kick us in the butt to help us stay on the evolving path. All right, so I did say that this book focuses on the positive of Mercury retrograde, but it does also include, the challenging bits. By the way, if you would like to get a copy of the book, just go to mercuryretrogradebook.com, mercuryretrogradebook.com. You can buy the book from that page, plus you'll get lots of bonuses, free bonuses. All right, so things to watch out for while Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. So this isn't an ideal time to travel if you can help it, unless you're returning somewhere before. Now, it's not because it's bad luck, it's not because something bad's going to happen, it's because there can be a need to reschedule things, reorganize your plans, your itinerary might not quite work out, there can be delays and so on. So if you can possibly stay local, great, but just say you're already traveling and you're hearing this going, what, oh no, it just means be flexible. So, just say you're traveling somewhere, just expect there may be delays. And so try and suit your itinerary to, fitting in delays if they come up. Be open to changes in your plans, and you may even enjoy the journey more, okay? There may also be misunderstandings based on cultural clashes, so it's very important to develop greater sensitivity to other people's feelings, especially if you are traveling. But even if you live in a very multicultural place like London, where, there are different cultures to be accommodated. Also, old legal matters can come up again and maybe even get sorted out. So if you've got some kind of legal matter pending, it can be a time to rethink it, renegotiate it, and maybe even sort it out. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius can stimulate opinions, which would be better left unspoken, because, Sagittarius is associated with Jupiter, very much about, this is what I think, and just, the big I am very much. So, be careful of that. Although you probably have the right answers for you, they may not be right for everyone else. Not everything needs your input, and saying nothing at all might be the wiser option, however difficult. So let me quickly, no, I'm going to leave it at that. So that's Mercury retrograde. I also want to mention that if you're thinking about, it's nearly the end of 2025 and 2024 rather, Mercury retrograde, it's nearly the end of 2024. I'm not sure, what have I done? What have I achieved? What am I trying to achieve next year? I wanted to show you about a workshop I have, which is free in inverted commas. If you're watching YouTube, you can see me making air quotes with my fingers. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm making air quotes with my fingers. It's free if and when you buy a copy of my Moonology diary or desk calendar for next year. I don't have the diary on my desk, but I do have the beautiful desk calendar if you're watching on YouTube. If you're just listening, I'll tell you it's a beautiful, I don't know what color green you'd call that. Is it pistachio with beautiful orange flowers? It's really beautiful, by Ali Vermilio, the artist. She did that. And I'm going to have this free workshop. It's called Kickstart 2025. And it's going to be all about next year and how to make the most of next year. Okay, so it's going to talk about all the massive planetary changes which are coming up, and there is so much planetary shifting landscape next year. We've got planets. We had Pluto changing signs this year, which was big, but next year is I would say as big, because even though Pluto changing signs this year was kind of one of the biggest things that can happen in astrology, next year there's more planets changing signs, including planets that have been in one sign for years and years and finally changing. It's going to be a very interesting year, and I want to help you to understand what's coming up so you can make the most of it. And as I said, the workshop is free if you buy either my diary or my desk calendar and register it at, and I'm going to give you an address, I'll put it in the description as well, moonmessages.com/my diary, moonmessages.com/my diary. Okay, my diary, obviously one word. If you go there, if you've already bought the diary or the desk calendar, you can just register it right down the bottom and you can get all the freebies. We've got lots of freebies in there, like just PDFs and audio and so on that are going to help you make the most of next year. And if you haven't bought it yet, you can buy it wherever you want, register it there, and you'll get all the freebies as well. Plus, you will get access to the Kickstart Workshop, which you can only come to if you are registered as a diary buyer. Now, I did want to just quickly mention as well the other aspects that are going on this week, because I've talked a lot about Mercury retrograde. And if you're watching on YouTube, now you can see hopefully my my solar fire screen. So what you can see there, we've got Mercury going retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. Then we're going to have, that's on the 26th. On the 27th, we have, here we are, there we have it. We have the Sun making a harmonious aspect to Mars, which is great. It means that life should be flowing quite well at the start of the week. Any energy you put in should not be wasted. And then on the 28th, which is going to be a bit more towards the middle of the week, just be careful because we've got Venus clashing with Chiron. And Venus is the planet of love and relating and women and caresses and kindness, and it's clashing with Chiron, the wounded healer. So it could be that in the middle of the week there are going to be a few people maybe being a little bit mean, maybe old wounds being reopened. I'm just seeing here, yeah, that's Thursday. So we'll probably feel it, you know, even right now if you're listening on the day this podcast comes out, which is a Sunday. But we can feel it anytime up to Thursday. So just be a little bit careful if you're feeling very vulnerable, if you're if there's someone in your life that you know really triggers you, if you've already got a wound, an emotional wound that you're trying to heal, just go a little bit easy. And then hopefully you'll be able to use the retrograde, Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, to see the bright side of life, because Sagittarius always sees the bright side of life, to reconnect with someone who makes you laugh, because Mercury going backwards can bring reconnection. Sagittarius is about laughing. And I think the most important thing is to get some perspective back on your life. If you've fallen into a hole, really think, okay, during this retrograde, I'm going to do my best to see the bigger picture of my life. And in seeing the bigger picture, I'm going to feel more grateful. And in feeling more grateful, I'm going to end up attracting more good things into my life, because gratitude is one of the most important things in our practice, in our toolbox for manifesting, because gratitude basically takes us out of our ego and into a state where we become a more powerful manifester. So I am going to leave it there. Do go to mercuryretrogradebook.com if you want to get the book, so that you have all the information you need, and you can find out where in your chart, your personal chart, based on your rising sign, where the retrograde's taking place. And as I said, start thinking now about your diary for next year. Maybe you want the Moonology diary for 2025, and with it you'll get that Kickstart 2025 workshop, which will be brilliant. And if you want to sign up for that, that is moonmessages.com/my diary. All right, so have an amazing week. Thank you for listening, and I hope to speak to you next week.